So finally, after what feels like an eternity, I have finished the 14 episodes of Firefly, and now I'm here to review the film sequel to that television series, the 2005 science fiction film Serenity. Much like most of my other reviews, I'll quickly cover the plot before getting into the meat of my review. So let this be a warning in case somehow you haven't seen this movie and you still want to without being spoiled. But if you don't care about spoilers, or if you've seen the movie and it's just been a while, this will serve to refresh you on what went down. We open an unspecified period of time after the series ended. Mal is a jerk, much like he was in the pilot episode. He takes River on a bank robbery to a town that is hit by reavers while they're robbing the bank. Everyone gets back safely. Simon is ready to take River off the ship because of Mal endangering her, but before this can happen, River goes seemingly insane after seeing some sort of weird candy bar commercial. We find out that Simon has known all along that River could potentially become a weapon at any given point, and he had a safe word to use that would turn her off when that time came. This seemed a little retconny and not in a good way. I feel like even though the Firefly show did not last that long, in 14 episodes Simon surely would have mentioned this at some point. Like when River came at Jane with a butcher knife, I feel like he would have mentioned that he knew that this was a possibility when he rescued her. But whatever. Our bad guy of this movie is the Operative. He is a monster and he knows as much. He does very evil things so that one day the universe can be free of evil. One such thing he feels needs to be done is capturing River Tam by any means necessary. Over the course of his attempts, the crew get Inara back with them, and Shepherd Book, who was no longer with them, dies with what I assume is his new flock. Our heroes eventually find out what the Alliance has been so afraid of happening, with River being out and about. 10 years earlier, the Alliance attempted an experiment that would make the population of a world called Miranda more docile. This did not work, as it made roughly 90% of the world so docile that they all just sat back and died, and the other 10% became Reavers. And I guess the Alliance is afraid that River knows this and so needs to be captured or silenced. Eventually, Mal and crew are able to broadcast the truth about Miranda to the universe, and the Operative realizes that the government is not worth dying for like he originally thought. So this was a really strange experience for me. On the one hand, I really enjoyed this movie, and I think it's an exceptionally great science fiction movie. It's got an actual story, and it isn't all about the spectacle like so many sci-fi stories seem to be these days. It's got great character moments and multiple character arcs all around. These things are necessary in any movie, not just a genre piece. And this movie has them. But on the other hand, this movie does not feel like a good sequel to Firefly. I feel like this movie is altering too many of the things that we knew to be true from Firefly in order for this story to happen. And I don't mean tiny nitpicks. I mean huge things from the show are retconned in ways that don't really work for me. I already mentioned that Simon out of nowhere knows that River is capable of becoming Superwoman, but even that one is pretty tame compared to some of the others. I get the feeling, at least from this movie, that the only reason that the Alliance has sent the Hands of Blue guys and now the Operative to capture River is because she knows the secret of Miranda. First of all, why haven't we heard of Miranda before now? In 14 episodes, River said and did a lot of crazy things. Why didn't she speak up before now? I guess because she has a convenient case of the plot needs to happen in a certain way-itis. I guess you could argue that this was hidden so deep in her memories and she acquired this information while she was being experimented on, so there'd be no reason for it to come up so easily in her day-to-day life on Serenity. But then I would submit to you that there's no reason for it to come up so easily right before she goes on the rampage when she sees the candy bar commercial. The whole motivation of the villains of this movie just seems weak. During the series, I was under the impression that the Alliance was trying to capture River because she was like a science experiment to them, and they didn't want to lose her because she was valuable to them. In a way, this new reason that she knows government secrets, which, incidentally, she never would have revealed if the Alliance hadn't tried to lure her out with the candy bar commercial in the first place, this new reason seems like it is in place just so that the crew can have something that kinda resembles a happy ending. Yay, the government is maybe not gonna pursue River anymore. Hip hip hooray. That's really my biggest problem here. I really like the origin of the Reavers, even though I'm not sure it entirely jives with the idea that the Reavers created more Reavers by attacking ships and leaving survivors, which we saw in the episode Bushwhacked. But I guess this was a good origin for the original Reavers. This could have been something where people who watched the show had come up with their own ideas about where the Reavers came from, and then the actual reason disappointed them and didn't measure up to their own ideas. But I don't have that. I guess this is a good segue for me to talk about the Alliance, so here I go. I don't especially love how the Alliance is portrayed here. Something I loved about Firefly, on the rare occasion that it was done, was the ambiguity of good and evil. Of course, the series follows the crew of Serenity, so naturally they are considered the air quotes good guys by our standards. But I actually questioned any time Mal started whining about the Alliance being so awful. Most of the time, the Alliance people we saw were either incompetent and uninterested in doing a good job, or they were pretty decent people who just were doing their job. Sure, we had Dobson who beat an unconscious man and threatens a woman he's already shot, or the agent in Ariel, or the Blue Hands guys. But that's just specific people in the Alliance who are terrible people. They're not indicative of all of the Alliance, just like that sleazebucket Tracy shouldn't be indicative of all of the browncoats. So naturally I was disappointed to see the whole dichotomy between the anti-government Mal and the government itself be so simplified into a these are the good guys and the Alliance are the evilest scum of the universe. I suspect part of this may be Joss Whedon himself bleeding into this world. Everything I've seen of Whedon in the real world indicates that he is very much against the big government and is much more about the little people. So it makes sense that eventually he would put his own politics into this world and not bother to make it even a little more complex. I'm just surprised it took this long for it to happen. I guess I should talk about the deaths that we have here. If you've gotten this far, then some more spoilers won't hurt you. As I mentioned, Book dies, and then we also have Wash die later on. I can't say I was ever surprised when Book died during any of my viewings of this movie. He was barely in this film anyway, so when he turns up dead, it just didn't faze me that much, even though he was one of my favorite characters during the TV show. But Wash's death still shocks me every single time, and while I guess you could say that all death is air quotes pointless, I feel Wash's is doubly so. With Book, we get the message that the operative means business, and this shows us that the stakes are real. But with Wash, it just happens out of nowhere, and just as soon as it does, it's over and we've moved on to a big huge action scene. I just didn't like that, and I guess there's no real easy way to kill off a character that you love, but this just felt wrong to me. I feel like I've just about exhausted everything I had to say about this movie. I could probably go on and talk about how I wish the Hands of Blue guys were actually followed up on since they were set up in the series, but I've already complained about that in the tragically subpar Those Left Behind comic book miniseries that I reviewed. And I like the operative and the way he sees the world, so I feel it's okay that we get a new villain to basically perform the same task that the Hands of Blue guys did in the series. Overall, I find this movie to be a very well done piece of cinema. One of the best films of the 2000s, I think. But it's also a movie that I don't especially love watching all the time. Even with its kinda happy-ish ending, it's a pretty hard downer for this series to go out on with the death of two of my favorite characters. Even if the movie was hundreds of times the masterpiece that it is, it wouldn't be easy to just pop it in for some casual fun film watching when watching these characters I've come to love over the course of the series die is like having a knife twist in my stomach. And I do feel that if you only have 2 hours to watch something, you should probably watch the pilot to this series over this movie. Even though this movie is head and shoulders above most sci-fi films, I still feel that this movie values the action scenes a little more than the pilot to the series did. I 100% feel that the pilot did a better job juggling all of its cast, while this movie has to sideline 2 of the main characters for over half the film, and not every single character gets something to do, which is something that the pilot has over this movie. So that's my really long-winded review of this film. I hope you guys enjoyed the movie and the review. If you did, I encourage you to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And be sure to come back tomorrow or the day after tomorrow for some other kind of video. Until then, have a great day.